And we are live. Peace, 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 peace. I'm Black Power family. Welcome to another episode of Do Knowledge Radio, place where knowledge is born. This is your host, Knowledge Born a Lot. And I do believe in Santa Claus. I do believe in Christmas because I got a gift. Okay. I got a gift from Santa Claus. She brought me, that's right, Santa Claus is a black woman. That's the only Santa Claus I ever known. She brought me a gift today in the person of Queen Mother Nakia Tillman. Now, y'all heard her voice over the years, okay? If y'all been tuning in to my broadcast, now we get a chance to see her today and see that passion and that empowerment live. She is the author of boom, 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 boom.
Yes.
The Adventures of
Yeah.
Little Margie, okay? And more exciting news to come. So, brothers and sisters, let's welcome to the microphone Queen Mother Nakia Tillman in the building.
That is an amazing intro. Thank you. And I'm just glad to be here again. So thank you.
All love. I mean, it's been a little while. You know, I snuck Majestic up in here, so
I
he was
know.
real majestic when he came up in here. You see what I'm saying? I was like, where Mama Nakia at? You know. So
Phew, she's trying to
I'm
get it
glad that you
together.
made a way.
Yes.
Hey,
Always.
hey. I'm glad you made a way to come through and show us some love. How you been? How you doing?
I'm doing good considering this whole COVID 19 thing, and just working from home. And while I've been home, I've been working on another book, so we'll get into that later. But just taking this time to like make sure my health is good, stay healthy, and just move 2020 along.
Okay. And the royal fam, how they doing?
Oh, everybody's good. Q, my youngest one, told me to tell you hi. He told me, and I told him he would not
That's
be
what
in
I'm
this
talking
video.
about.
This
Boy,
is
you see that?
He told me to tell you hi.
Oh man,
Yeah.
you could have came in there. He could have gave him 2 minutes to talk about how he been dealing with the situation. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
yeah, no. Q was not a
Make him
2 minute
feel
child.
important.
Not
Well,
at all.
I've been here.
Yeah,
Can't
no.
go nowhere. I need that. I
No,
need a. I
no,
need that.
no.
He's an
Q has been
amazing.
he's been performing his magic shows for us, and he has about 10,000 magic tricks, and we see about 9,000 in
What?
one day of the same trick. So yeah, no, yeah.
We about to have a Q show. I need Q to do the magic joints right here so my sons come watch. I'll be like, y'all need to step it up. Y'all see that? Okay? Y'all need to step it up.
He's so no, he's good. He's handling this well. He doesn't mind not being in school.
Mm.
Mm-mm.
Most of our children don't. My son's just like, what? Can we? Is this the? You don't have to, you know.
Right.
And that wonderful balance in regards to seeing the brilliance and also seeing the issues with behavior. you, you
Right.
see what I'm saying? No matter what. So it's like, I kind of heard what you were saying in regards to that. So, you know, with the time in
Right.
between recognizing that and building, you know, those bonds and relationships because you might have figured out that your children don't even like you, you know, during this time, you know, and they might just be tolerating you, you know. So
Right.
establishing those relationships and bonds and sharing stories and, you know, 10,000 magic tricks is like a miracle because we don't often get that time. The hustle and bustle with everything that's going on, the to and fro and carting children into the car and throwing them out before the car even stopped, you know, and taking them somewhere and allowing someone to impart these things into their psyche, embars their imagery into their psyche, and all those other things that we discuss. You know, we rarely get time with our children, so you know, I'm thankful,
Yeah.
you know, for this time to be able to see that. And for those who roughing it, you know, they don't have to be rough. You know,
No, it
you
don't.
gotta
And
look in you, see what's going on.
right. And you just gotta allow kids to be kids. And 90 as an educator, 90% of parents know just who and what they birth realizing, it's just now you got to be home with them all day. You have to readjust. You have to do things a little bit differently. But you know how your child is when they get home and when you're struggling to get them to go to bed, if that's the case. So you know
Right.
what your child is because you have them on the weekend. You know, so it is just now you got them 7 days a week in 24-hour rotation.
Right.
So now and yeah, you're dealing with now what the teachers have been dealing with imagine 30 of the same child in one classroom
Right.
for 7-8 hours, and it's just like, yeah, it could get a little rough, but it's been good, because I know my son. I make no excuses. He's an amazing kid, but I know who he is. So, and because I
Right.
know who he is, I'm able to adjust accordingly and not go off the deep end because he's who he is, and I gotta let him, be with some boundaries, but he just has to, trust that he can be himself, and he's not gonna be punished for it.
Man, that's amazing. You know, I had to have, you know, parent children conferences on the side real quick. Just take them in the office and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" After my son, my 6-year-old, he's like, "I'm just really stressed out." I was like, "Oh, that was an adjustment to the psyche because we grew up with that. You ain't got nothing to be
Yeah,
stressed out about. You ain't got to pay no
yeah,
bills.
exactly.
Da, da, da. I
That's
had
it.
to throw all of that shit in the trash, like
Yeah,
20, all of it away, like boom, like it does not apply in this situation.
yeah,
They're
it
not
doesn't.
you, they're them. So
Right.
I'm like, okay, what are you stressed out about? You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's just too much going on. And I'm like, whoa, this grown man is talking to me because the door's open. You see what I'm saying? So if the door was
Yeah,
closed, it's like, oh, nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing. Just nothing. So,
yeah,
they worried about the family just like we worried about the family. You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? So
yeah.
it's in that level of communication, that level, and they're carrying it. We kind of brush through it, fight through it. So we found our ways through it. They have to find their way through it, and we have to help them navigate those waters.
Absolutely,
Not just tell them
absolutely.
you'll be all right. All of that stuff that got us through childhood. I threw that shit right in the trash as soon
Yeah,
as all of this stuff started because
yeah,
the kind of engagement that they need is one that's trusting. I ain't talking about the rules, the culture, the discipline, none of that. I'm saying in regards to the level of communication that's
communication.
there
Yeah,
and being open to receive. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Because I have to check myself because you just like when I was little, his age, go outside, play,
right,
lonely. You weren't lonely. You had your family. You go outside. You figure out ways to
right,
entertain yourself. But now it seems like these kids are lonely in a different way because they have their phones and they don't necessarily go outside and run around a tree or digging, play in the dirt. So they don't do those things. So some of the kids I heard say, well, they feel lonely. Like lonely how you're in a house with your with your siblings or your mom and dad all day, but they're lonely because they can't get to their friends, and that wasn't a part of
right,
our development. We were like, we were excited to be with our friends, but if we couldn't see them, it was okay, and we just had to deal with it. These kids are operating on a different level of consciousness that I've never seen before, and I'm like trying not to judge that because it's like, okay, I'm not growing up with them, just like I didn't grow up with my parents. So it's each generation is a little
right.
bit different. So I'm learning how to be, adjust that way. And but my kid is just like I can say he has us in the house playing hide and go seek. So there you go.
That's what I'm talking about. Bossing up in there. 11, 12, mommy, I see you. 13,
Yep.
14, ready or
Yep.
not.
Yep. You're right. Yep. But I found it, so for any parent that's listening, if you want to play hide and go seek, here's one of the tricks. Let your child hide for about 5 or 10 minutes. Let them hear you say you're coming and just take your time going to find them, and that stretches the game. Because clearly you're gonna find them
Mm,
because they're laughing and giggling in the spot. But if you say you're coming and don't
right.
move for a few minutes, that stretches the game. I learned how to do that. Just don't forget your kid is hiding because I've done that too. He's like, "Mommy," I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Oops."
Boy, where you, mommy, you talk? Oh,
You're supposed to come find me, and I was like,
oops. Yeah,
but so that's just what we've been doing.
beautiful. That is beautiful. So, what are some of the things that you discovered about yourself? as an educator, you share some things as super mama because you are a super mama during this time and communicating with other parents, children, things like that. What are some things you discovered about yourself during this process?
Just give yourself a break. It's okay to understand that you don't have all the answers and ask for support. If whether you're single, if you have a partner, like reach out because you don't always have the answers. And your kids are very forgiving. Like if you don't know, say you don't know or I messed up. Like a lot of the times as adults, we want to hold on to being in control and letting the child see that we're always in control, so they don't think anything less of us. But your kids are gonna love you. So just and trying to be flexible. Some things you can be a little bit flexible about. I try to be, as much as I can without being a pushover. But with me, he is my last one, so I kind of sometimes I'm like, a little soft, but it's just knowing your boundaries as a parent, which you can deal with, and as much as you can communicate because they're gonna communicate. Like these kids have no problem telling you what's on their minds, and I think a lot of times is with parents, it's not well with anybody. It's not so much as what you say is how you say it, and we got to recognize that children are learning how to communicate. So sometimes they may say it, and they may be excited. They're gonna be frustrated and angry in the way they communicate, but you have to articulate that how their response may not be correct, and for them to bring that down, into their age and level and appropriateness, and then go from there. Because kids will go from 0 to 1,000 in a second, and then if you're not settled within yourself, and clear about how you are as a parent, you're gonna instantly like it's gonna be a battle. And what you don't want to do, especially with um, being cooped up with your family all day, is just, and you're gonna get frustrated. And what you don't want to do is when you're correcting your child is correct them when you're frustrated and when you're angry, because bad things happen. Because I've done it. I've been like frustrated, and it's like my top was blown, and I'm like, phew. So I had to come back and apologize, because soon as you lose your cool, like the look on their faces is like, I can't believe you. Like, and then they're like, well, why are you screaming at me? And I'm like, and then you gotta explain yourself. It's like, what do you mean while I'm screaming at you? Like, so, and now, they got you. It's like, so mommy done lost her mind, so you just have to, you know, and it's hard. I mean, and it's hard. It's not easy. I'm trust me, I do not have this down to a science, but I work on it. So I know what my triggers are, because I have triggers. And so when I feel him like stepping on that line, I know he's getting ready to go over it. So I try to nip it in the bud before he gets to it, because I know myself. So when you know yourself, you know you can handle a situation a lot better. And sometimes it's not even, you got to pick your battles with anything. Like if he wants to engage, I don't engage him. Sometimes I just ignore him. I said, look, whatever, and walk away. And that calms down the situation. You just gotta, where are you willing to go in that moment? Because again, you don't know how it can escalate. You would think a child couldn't bring you to that point, and you're like, why am I arguing with a 7-year-old? But you find yourself arguing with the child. And I just try not to, or something like, you know what? I need to reevaluate how I'm doing things so that I don't take it out on him. And so I'm learning. Now my oldest will tell you, he's like, "Ma, where was all this intellectual education when I was?" Then I'm like,
Where was your
right,
antennas?
right.
Where
I'm
was
like,
the
well,
antennas?
exactly. I said, well, son, I was a teenage parent, so I didn't have all the tools and the wherewithal. And not only that, you two are different children. For the most part,
Right.
Majestic was an amazing kid, even a little kid. But when he would lose it, I would lose it, and it's like my perfect angel. So after you used to have to felt I had to rein him in, and I didn't. And I do a lot of things differently now, and so I've learned a lot. And you just gotta forgive yourself and say, I'm gonna do better moving forward, because it's not easy.
And a lot of that modeling was there. A lot of that modeling of a one-dimensional approach to everything. You see what I'm saying? So you come from a
Mm-hmm.
line of strong women. You see what I'm saying? And it
Yes.
wasn't a lot of that wiggle
Right.
room in there for interpretation and things like that. So like you made that even stronger
Nope.
with
Nope.
tapping into the side that they wish that they could have, you know, with you. You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's glad that the implementation process comes around so you can show more of the dimensions instead of one dimension. Like I literally in a class one day and was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I got my ass whooped. I don't know any other discipline policy. You see what I'm saying? I'm sitting in there with my sociology teacher,
Right.
like, what do
Right.
you mean? You see what I'm saying? Like all of that, I turned out fine. You understand what I'm saying? Like, like so
Right.
I had to
Right.
go through
Right.
other kinds of situations. It's like, okay, I had to learn that. You see what I'm saying? I
Right.
had to learn that because I hadn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was other approaches to discipline. You see what I'm saying? And,
Right.
and
Right.
being creative in that and having them have an understanding of what this is. This isn't all encompassing. This is for this right here. So
Right. Right.
putting that
And,
together. See,
right.
look,
And that, and
you spoke up a listener. I was doing that with the book with a listener. Boom, she right
right.
here.
Right. Right. And see, and
Boom,
that's
boom.
where a lot of the right. The inspiration from the book comes from because my grandmother, she was a very down south, woman disciplinarian, and her look and her voice will stop you in your tracks, um, because she was an extension cord switch person. Now, being the oldest grandchild, I never got hit like that. I was her baby, so but I watched my
Bless
cousins,
your heart.
and I heard, my mother and my aunts, uncles, the stories they said, and coming from the deep south, that's how she understood discipline. And so, but it was interesting because my mother, I think I got a spanking once and I got slapped once for mumbling. I didn't realize she hurt me, but
Mm,
I got popped for mumbling. But she never she never wanted to inflict that kind of pain on me or harm on me, because she knew what it could do and what that feels like. And my mother has a very heavy hand, and so she didn't want to put that on me, and she didn't. And she could talk to me and look at me, and I just knew. You have a parent where you just know better. You just know, and you just know
right.
better. And so I knew, like, you don't want to play with this woman at all. Something about me just, yeah. And so I never, to this day, I'm 44. I don't play with my mother, and so, but my grandmother, she had to deal with strict rules, like, talk when you're being talked to, be quiet, um, switches, extension, just a lot of physical beatings, just and that was done in order to keep them safe in their minds, because when you're living on a plantation, still doing plantation work,
Right.
the
Right.
sharecroppers, this is Georgia, we just people think, are shocked that, the young man Aubrey that was executed in Georgia, they're shocked, and I'm like, why? Why should you be shocked about
Right.
this type of scenarios? They're still happening. They're not happening as frequently as they used to, but they're still happening. You still have clan members and who have had children and who still carry on this type of mentality. And so there
Right.
might be some justice for this, but back then there was no justice at all. They would shoot you, and you just have to keep on working. They would, shoot your loved one, kill them, and you have to keep, picking that cotton or whatever. And there was no peace or justice coming for you. So their mentality was, we have to keep our kids in line. We have to make sure they know the rules so we don't lose them, and we have to know our place so that they don't lose us.
Right.
So that's the generation that my grandmother came from, and she would tell me those stories. But in the midst of all of that madness, she found joy. And so she would tell us about that joy, about being little, about being a farm girl. And that's part of what I want to get across in the book, is that we don't necessarily see black girls as farm girls. Back then, like, they had to understand the land. It's a science to that. When to grow crops, when to pick crops. My grandmother could pick out. She knew how to pick out a watermelon. We'd be in the grocery store. I would grab one. She'd be like, "No, grab that one," and she'd be right all the time. So it was just wisdom that they learned on, coming up the way she did, like the, eating that red dirt clay. She would eat it. She said, well, sometimes we would be hungry and it was sweet. She said, but we would do other things with it. We would make things, like you can mold it, make pots and stuff, and it could be used for medicine depending on what you knew and who you knew and how to fix things. And so she would just tell us a lot of stories about getting in trouble. Imagine running around with your siblings, and even with all of that they had to that was on their backs, they would still find time to be kids and get in trouble, like
Right.
stick their fingers in the pies
Right.
and food and hide up under the porch and do things that normal kids did and would do, and then have to go back to picking cotton
Right.
and have to sit there and being called the N-word and having being spit on. It was these things that she went through. And so I talk about, well, the first book is not about that. It's just her coming into the world. And what I love about that is I get to talk about the midwives and introduce that, because that's also a part of our history, that's been taken, and um, we're slowly starting to acknowledge it again. But for like 60, 70 years, we really forgotten the importance of midwives and midwifery, and how these women had zero, or close to zero deaths when they were bringing, you know, babies into the world. Like even a white woman, you would go to the granny
Right.
midwife who was black to birth to give birth. And so the government came in,
Right.
shut that down, and then here we are. Our children, are fighting to get that back. So I'm doing a little bit of everything, and trying to just bring some awareness. And I show that at the end of the book. So I'm excited.
Okay. I love it. You know I do. Um, I love it. I do. Child literacy. You were giving us
Mm.
some amazing insight. You know, you said it's already. You're already ready. You're already ready,
Yeah.
and I, I wanted you to speak to that, and especially if you could provide some tips for parents. They're home now. With their children, things like that, in regards to that kind of shift in thought in regards to child literacy at home.
So literacy is not just being able to read and write and spell your name. Literacy is being able to understand and communicate who you're talking to and who you're talking with. So when I say literacy, if your kids are home listening to music and doing all kinds of things, that's literacy. They're engaging. And what we need to be mindful of is comprehension. Do they understand what they're talking about? When you ask them a question, do they know what it is? Because we as African Americans, we tend to, when we absorb information, it's through a lot of movement. You know what I mean? Like when we're moving or we're doing something, if you notice, like when we're at a desk, teachers are telling you to be still, you got to sit a certain way, and we get antsy because we want to move. We're used to being up and being mobile, and honestly, that's how learning really occurs, through motion and through absorbing your environment. So the more these kids are moving and absorbing the environment, the more knowledge they gain, the more their brains are stimulated, and that helps learning. That helps talking. I as a family support specialist, I go into a lot of houses, and the child, maybe two or approaching two or even three, and they're like, well, my child doesn't really talk. And I always warn the parent, I said, be careful what you're saying, because once that child starts talking, you're gonna be like, oh my God, they won't stop. What's going on is a parent needs to understand that every child's development is different. You can have four kids go the same way, and that one child will go the exact opposite. Doesn't mean they're delayed, doesn't mean they're slow. It just means that their development is on a different track. No child's development is in a straight line. um, and so what they have to be aware is understanding. Even if they're not talking, if you point to something and ask them to bring it here, do they understand what you're saying? And 98% of the time, they'll be like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, are you, when you're talking to your child, are you looking at them so they could watch your mouth move? And they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. I'm like, sometimes you got to get in your child's face, speak slowly, because here's the thing. A lot of times when we tell a child something and they don't automatically do it, we think they're being disrespectful, and they're not. What's happening is the child is 2 or 3. Their cognitive skills are not at your level. So if you stand like 5 feet back from a person and you toss a ball to that person, that's how long it takes for the child to hear it and get it and process. And they're like, oh, instead of saying it like 3 or 4 times and then screaming at the kid, I told you to, no, say it slowly and wait a minute and then allow the child to process and do what you asked. A lot of times if we don't know that, we're like, didn't I tell you to go? Didn't I tell you? And the child is standing there like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. You didn't allow that child time to process what you were saying. Remember, they're little. They're forming. Their brains have not, formed, and they're going to get everything that they need to learn by the time they're 3. That's why you sometimes see the big head child. That's all the nerves and everything is like forming. And at 3, it stopped. So now the body's catching up to the brain. So we just got to be mindful of how we're treating our children when they're little, because we can do a lot of damage as well before they're 3. Because if they're not being stimulated, if they're not being talked to, if they're not, being held and getting that one-on-one, that can cause a delay because it's not being stimulated. It's just like, when you let a car sit, after a while, when you turn it on, it might make that noise or it might not turn on at all because you haven't been driving it. It's the same thing. A child needs to be moving. You need to play with them. Motor is key. Body movement is key. Even if you just let the child lay there and like move their arms, like stretch, because sometimes the child will also be tight, their muscles are tight. Like stretch and move, do whatever you can to help mobility, because that strengthens the brain and that helps with language. Everything in the brain that you do, like physicality, helps them with their language. And everything that they see or don't see is what they're going to do. So if you're not talking to them or looking at them, or you're ignoring them, and then you're telling me, oh well, my child doesn't talk that much, that's why. And by now you can pretty much tell, like, children that are being talked to for the most part, because they're, as soon as you look at them, they're babbling, and they're talking and they're smiling and they're trying to get your attention. The children that doesn't have as much attention, they can be a little bit laid back. And then until it could be their demeanor, and you don't know, but it's best to do all you can to make sure they're being stimulated as much as possible, because then if they're still not responding, then that's when you talk to your pediatrician. If they haven't already caught it, you say, listen, I'm concerned about this. And then they'll make sure the child gets screened, because some delays, some things can happen in the womb, and you just wouldn't know it, and it will manifest itself later. But by the time they're 3, you should pretty much know where your child is at developmentally, and that child is going to let you know by either what they're doing or what they're not doing.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did that baby talk. Maybe that's just the father in me. I never did the what you want
No, 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 no,
and
no,
I didn't
no,
encourage
no,
none of
not
that.
the baby dog. No, not the baby.
None of
No,
that.
but
Yeah, I
but
ain't never encouraged. I didn't even want to hear it.
but you know the interesting.
The baby, the baby. I
But you
can't
know the
even do
interesting thing.
that.
But you know the interesting thing about baby talk, because I was the same way until I learned that baby talk is just another language. And what's wonderful about babies, it's just like a child. You could take, if you would have took me and put me in China, I would be speaking Chinese. Why? Because that's my first language. Babies can decipher language. So if you're babbling with that child, that baby's gonna babble, and they're hearing sounds, but also they're hearing you have communication. So eventually, that babbling will turn into regular communication. And you can say the sabu, but follow it up with regular talk. So I don't discourage that, because I understand that that's some parents, they do that just because of the reaction they get out of the kid. Um, because eventually the child will start to talk. They will distinguish between babbling and real talk, just like they would distinguish between two languages. If they were, some parents will teach their kids English and whatever their native language is, and they have no problem with that. So we got to be of the understanding that children learn very quickly at that age, and they can decipher.
That's right. I talk to them
Kids are
straight,
very smart.
and they appreciate
Yeah.
they appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? So to the point where other people will come try to talk to them, well, how's your baby? And then they
Yeah.
be looking like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what is it? And they looking at me
Yeah.
like, Daddy, get your
Yeah. And
homeboy. Like,
that's
you know what I'm saying?
right. And that's a cultural thing. I believe that is a cultural thing because my mother would say she's like, and please don't talk baby talk to them. I'm like, Ma, no, I don't. I talk. And she was like, okay, but that I believe that is very cultural. We don't do it, and we are like, no, because we feel like we're gonna mess that kid up. It's like your child won't be able to talk, but no, your child can distinguish between babbling and regular conversation. I just didn't do it. I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. So, but I don't discourage a parent from doing it. But that's a person's how however they want to do it. I'm fine with, because I have some kids that mothers don't do that, and by 3 they're having language issues. So what's going on? So it just depends on the child.
Yeah, I mean, it's as much as you could teach a child. I think you could teach a child up to like 4 or 5 different languages,
Yeah.
at that age. So some of these places want your children as early as 3 for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They want to teach
Yeah.
them and guide that cognitive developmental
Yeah.
processes in the way that they should
Absolutely.
go based off of
Absolutely.
their culture. So
Yeah.
if you send them out
Yeah. I mean, it's
somewhere
really.
and they don't have your cultural values, you're
Mm-hmm.
giving your child to an enemy. You see what I'm saying? They're gonna bring that foreign
Exactly.
stuff right back home. What did you?
Right. Yep.
You
Yep.
don't.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. And
So
and
things like
and
that.
that's so true. Like what I said, that's why things are cultural. And you got to respect it. It's like I respect my parents that don't do it, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. But just don't. If you do it, it's fine. But if not, I get it because I didn't do it. So I'm not gonna knock another parent for what they do or what they don't do with their child. As long as they're not abusing or doing anything wild, I get it.
Right. Right. So let's talk about this other surprise you've been working on, cooking up this other addition that you got going on.
So my other book is a comic book that's coming out, and it's called The Amazing Q, based off my son, and it's about him just being a superhero in his community, and he's gonna have a costume and a cape and everything, and he's gonna be the mascot. But just understanding that our little brown boys, black and brown boys, they're heroes, and they don't get treated like heroes a lot. They get treated like the enemy, and they're not, and they need to know that they're heroes and they have something to accomplish, and they're great individuals. And what's cool about this is I didn't even know I was doing it when I was doing it. um I'm gonna insert my little cousin Ireland, and she is an amazing little kid. They're about the same age, and she's going to be helping him with like electronics around the community, like cluing him in like where to go when they have like walkie talkies or little watches and stuff. And
Mm.
when I was telling her mother about it, she was like, that's like Penny from Inspector Gadget, right? I was, and
Right.
I didn't care for that, but I was like, you know what? You're right. I was like, and we're gonna call
Yeah.
her Gadget Girl, and she was super
Yeah.
excited, and there was like, it's been a fun experience in the process just to have that for the little boys, because when I bring Q, when we start promoting the book, like when I bring him, he's going to be full costume. He's going to be doing his acrobats and flipping and telling people how he helps around the community and doing these things. And in the book he's
Mm.
going to be like rescuing kittens out of trees. Like, I mean, he's not going to be jumping over buildings, but he's going to be pretty close. Like, he's going to be doing some pretty dynamic things, because he thinks he can, and I don't tell him he can't. He told me he's going to be doing parkour, and I'm like, wait, what? He's like, mommy, parkour. So I had to look that up, and I was like, oh, okay. So I'm like, okay, we'll do parkour. And so with the help of his cousin Ireland, they're going to just take over their little town, and so
That
do big
sounds
things.
I love it. I love it.
So
It's
that's
so
what we're doing.
beautiful for the psyche to see our young people being creative and brilliant and fearless
Right.
and breaking boundaries and creating new
Yeah.
narratives of
Yeah.
empowerment. You know,
I know.
you know, yeah, it's just yeah, I love it. I'm waiting for the digital animation already. I'm already putting my money to the side. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. I do.
Small commercial for it, so I'm waiting for everything to be done. I'm plugging in my charger because I don't want to die on you. But I'm just excited. Excited about everything. And it's something for him to get behind too, and be excited about because he's an excellent reader, and I made sure early on that he was reading books and everything because I understand that by the third grade if your child isn't a very good reader they're gonna have a hard time in school, and that's when math gets real complicated because math is reading now.
Right.
I was young, math was
That's right.
just memorizing concepts
Math.
and
Right.
math. Now this stuff, I'm like, what is this? Like, no, I don't like this. But he has to do it, so I have to make sure I understand and that he's capable. But so that's why when I say parents, comprehension is key because if your child doesn't understand the little things, every year gets harder. It's like a foundation, and if your foundation is shaky, they're going to be shaky, and this is why they're able to treat our kids the way they treat them when they kick them out of the classroom because when a child feels like they can't do it or they're scared, they get defensive, they get disruptive. A lot of teachers don't care,
Right.
or they care, but they choose to because they might not like the child, and they're putting them out the room. So, and it becomes a pattern, and then that follows a kid. I've seen teachers talk about a child, and then when they, the next teacher's already, her mind is already set about that kid, and the teachers are like, "Oh God, you got
Right.
such and such," and it's like, why would you do that? Like every day's a new day, every year's a new year. You don't know what that child is going through. Don't do that. So so I make sure that and I educate my parents that I work with. I said, listen, this is things you got to be aware of because these things are happening, and we just got to make sure our kids are okay. Moving down to get this charger on my phone. So it's a lot. Parents have a lot on their plate, but I just try to make sure parents in the community are aware of what's going on because a lot of times they don't know because they're working and you're tired of doing whatever, and they're not going to tell you what's going on really, and sometimes we don't show up for our kids the way we need to, and then things happen, and then we wonder when did that happen or why it happened. So I just try to make sure parents are informed and know what's going on with your kids because nobody's going to care more for your kid than you are, and I try to be very clear about that. No matter what's going on, if you're not showing up for your kid, nobody else will. And so with this book, I want little boys to be able to see themselves in that. Nothing like representation.
Definitely. I was so hyped for that little series on Netflix, Raising Dion. I watched that thing like 3 or 4 times. You know,
Yeah.
just to see that young little boy protecting his mama and protecting his community. So it's like, yeah, it was definitely there, and his father was there. Like he was his father's son. Like all of it all together. You know, and it was around science. You see what I'm saying? So he was using his
Mm.
mind and his and like all together. So it's like seeing the brilliance in our youth. So we don't just look at them as just children. We could get into that mind frame of looking at them like children and property and not see the properties that make them up in totality. So communication comes in
Wow.
that form as well, and their adherence to you know our culture, and how they actualize their experience on the planet. You know, we're here as guides. We're here as guides, and there are aspects where they're the guide and we're the guide. So knowing how to be interchangeable in that process of guidance, this is what we all need. This is what we're all here for, and you know, wisdom comes out of the mouth of babes. If you're in a position to hear it. So
Mm.
it's
That's awesome.
interesting.
Yeah, it's true. It really is, and I'm just always amazed what cute with his father. Like I said, because I know my triggers and they're easy to step on one, but he is very good with talking and communicating effectively with him, and just like bringing him down. And I'm just looking like, really, like, but he is. I applaud him for that because he he understands what he's going through, and he understands that energy, and so he talks to him and he talks him down. Sometimes he has to be a little firm, and obviously, but most of the time it's a talk. It's a 1-2 shot, and it's done. Where I have to keep talking and explaining, and that nerve keeps getting stepped on, and he guides him in a way that I just can't, and I let him. Like, I'm like, you know what, this is something your father can deal with. I'm gonna sit back from, because I know he knows how to do it in a way that I can't. And that, and I'm happy to step to the side and let him do it. And so that's amazing. I have to check that show out.
Yeah, definitely, it's a good one. It's a good one, and I think it got renewed for another season. So as long as they don't step into too many cultural lines, we'll have another season after that. Because once they start showing our culture, that's the end of that. You're done. You're done. You're done for.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that. But that's why we need to control what we put out and how we put it out. That way, nobody can take it away.
Majestic got it. He's the solution.
Yeah. He can't wait for this to be over. Like, he finally got all his equipment, his team together, and it was like, boom, you can't meet. So I was like, I'm like, but no, I said, but you know what? Sometimes things, you need to cleanse something in order to make way for something new.
Right.
So I said, so just use this time wisely. That's all.
How has the success been for the book? The reception. Is there some virtual reading groups we could go to and you know read and share? Is there something like that in the works? Since we got
No,
a little
that's a
time.
what I'm planning on doing, which is a good idea. I haven't been able to with work and everything, and I haven't been able to get that going. But I'm moving slow. I'm learning, and I'm doing a lot of things. And so for 2020, I'm more likely to be doing that. And the reception has been really, really, really positive, and I'm connecting with some really good people. We want to do is when we're able to come back together and meet in group. I hooked up with an amazing woman, and we want to be able to do like a book fair in Albany instead of having to always go down to the Harlem Book Fair. And which if you can do that, that's amazing. But sometimes people can't afford to travel 3 hours, and then you got to pay for the booth. It's expensive, and then you got to try to make your
Right.
money back. And so we would love to do something like that up here for local authors, because sometimes it's even hard to get into Barnes and Nobles to get a table, if the person doesn't reach back out to you. So what we want to do is try to network and just bring people together, and give them a platform to show their work. You know what I mean? Because I'm loving what I'm doing, and I'm sure I know I'll be successful. But somebody else who needs a help, because I've been getting a lot of help and a lot of love and a lot of support, and I'm so grateful. And if I can help somebody get that and share what I've gone through, so they won't have to, I'm more than willing. And hopefully, that person, whoever they may be, will go even further. So that's my goal this year, is to, hopefully this year, is just to tighten up what I'm doing, do some virtual readings, get my technical side tight. I'm working on it. I'm working on it, and being able to just like be more confident in myself and put it out there, and hopefully people will be receptive, um, and just put it out there and see what happens.
You're making a comic book, okay? You're
Yeah.
making a comic book. So, that's some genius stuff right there. That's yeah.
Yeah.
So you got
Little
it. We rooting for you. And we
thank
gonna support it.
Thank
We
you.
ready. You know.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for the Q hour so Q could come on here, do
Oh,
his magic tricks. He could do everything. Okay.
oh
He got a
God.
whole little space. Whatever time you let me know, he could come over here, bam, inspire some young children to be active, to be vocal. You know, he can share his principles with them, all of that. You know, so whenever you want to do that, if you want to do it, you just let me know, and we definitely can set that up because we love our young people.
All
You
right.
know,
I'll let you know.
we
I
love
will let
on
him
them.
know so he can prepare himself. Yes.
And tell him I said hi. Since he said hi, I'll say hi back.
Well, uh, yeah, that's my baby. So, anything else? I mean, I could talk forever, but I know we don't have forever. So, if there's, anything to ask me, questions. Oh,
Well, the
I'm
last
sorry.
aspect I want to do.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No,
Oh no,
I need that. Whatever that is, I need it.
I'm just gonna say, and I am on Amazon. That I am up. The Adventures of Little Margie on Amazon.com. So you can go on there too and purchase a book or download on Kindle. Yes, I know the physical copy is
And leave a
it's so
review.
it's pretty. It's so pretty.
And leave a review. Leave a good review. Okay, leave a review.
Please,
Review.
yes, yes. Please leave a review.
So in the realm of spirituality, how have you been spiritually throughout this process?
Breaking up a little bit. I can't hear that.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I couldn't hear you. I can't hear you.
I'm gonna leave and come back.
Uh-oh. What happened?
How about now? Can you hear me?
Hmm. Can you hear?
Yes, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Mm. Yes, I don't know. I know the weather changed, so that could be why we're experiencing some like um, static. There's clouds forming over me right now.
Is it snowing out there right now?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I hear you clearly.
No, it looks like it's getting ready to storm though.
Mm.
Okay, you were asking about how I'm doing mentally and spiritually.
Yes, ma'am.
I am doing. Actually, I'm doing good. I'm doing well. It's just settling some things in my mind about people I had to leave behind. People that decided they wanted to be left behind. And just focusing on family and what I needed to do for me in order to, be a better person, a better mom, a better partner, better friend, and just those things. I have who I need in my life, and I'm okay with that. And then, I get nothing but love and support from people who I choose to interact with, and that's even family members. Like I don't deal with everybody anymore, and it feel like a weight's been lifted, and sometimes we need to do that. Whether it's a family member or not, sometimes you gotta know when to say, you know what, you're not good for me, and I'm gonna be over here. If you choose to be in my space, we'll do it in a positive way. But if as soon as you wanna not be positive, then I'll step to the left again. So that's just kind of how I'm moving now. Oh, you're going in. Yeah. So and it's
That's a part of
just
ascension, I believe.
yeah, just knocking off the guilt about it, and I'm okay. And I've gone through a lot of growth. Now I just gotta continue to stay positive, be confident, and put it out there. And I'm drinking more water. Alkaline water for me. I have to drink alkaline water.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. So, final thoughts, shout outs, acknowledgments, where people can get the
Um,
book and what they should be on the lookout for, social media, all of that stuff.
so final thoughts is thank you for listening to me. I hope you got something out of this. If anything, you can use it. If not, that's okay too. I'm just glad you tuned in. The Adventures of Little Margie's is on sale on my website, littlemargiesworld.weebly.com, and it's also on Amazon.com now, so you can go and get it. Um, what's coming this summer is my new comic book, the Amazing Q, and then right behind that will be the second book to the Adventures of Little Margie. Because if you got the first book, she's just being born. She's coming into this world. But the second book is going to be her in this world doing what she does, and I'm excited about it. So, um, yeah. So 2 books will be coming. I'm also trying to do my credentialing. So when you go on my website, for parents, if you need trainings or just information about parenting, referrals, that's going to be free. But if you are continuing your education, I'm going to charge, and it'll only be about $10 or $15 per training session. And so I'm going to be offering those for people who want to go into education, maybe daycare or doing what I'm doing, like family support specialist, and just trying to bring that awareness and that level of education to our community, because there's nothing better than our kids seeing a representation of me. Like when and I have to be honest, when I go into a lot of these places, the trainers, they don't look like me, they're white, but all the kids are brown, black and brown, or
Okay.
minorities. So they need to see more of us being educated, and going in front of our kids and saying, hey, we're just as educated, we know what we're talking about, and we know our culture, we know our kids, and they need to have this information, and you need to have this information, because you guys are educating our kids, and so we need
Right.
to make sure that they're doing it correctly. That's just the bottom line. um and so I'm going to be doing those trainings and professional development trainings, because what I have learned is, I learned how to take correction. I had a great mentor saying there's nothing wrong with taking correction. For a lot of black people, especially black women, I used to be one of them. It's hard for us. We want to be correct, but we don't want to be corrected, and we need to learn how to, when we do something that needs an adjustment, it's okay, somebody to say, you know what, maybe you might want to try this, do it this way, you know what I mean? And so I've learned that, and it's just a part of growth and development. It's okay to take correction. Correction is learning. It's a part of life. We're not always going to be right. We want to correct, but we don't like to be corrected. And I had to do a mental shift, because I've had my butt handed to me a few times behind a correction. And I thought I knew everything, and you realize, no, you don't know everything. But this is how we need to work on it. And so you just have to learn. You have to learn these things, and through sometimes getting your feelings hurt, others from getting their feelings hurt. That's my job, because we need to be the best that we can be for our kids. And so that's going to be on the website as well. So yeah, just 2020 is still going to happen. So yeah, just trainings, more books, and I'm going to try to get more videos out with me reading the book and me doing book readings, and hopefully just continue to network. And hopefully you guys will enjoy what I'm doing.
Social media.
I know. I suck at that. I'm trying. But I did. You know what I just did too? I just did a photo shoot with my wonderful doula friend Jayana. So new pictures are coming. New pictures of the book. So you're gonna see a whole new moi for 2020. I'm gonna put myself out there more. I'm gonna just do it like the was in that swooshy Nike now. I'm gonna do it. Thank you. And that's all. That's all I got. That's all I
All right. Well, thank you, Drew. With the jewels and the gems, we got a shout out.
got.
I don't know if you can see it or not.
Mm-mm. I cannot. I see my cousin Manisha. Hello, my love. That's it. I just saw a picture of her and Alyssa. That's all I see.
Well, Alyssa said that he was giving out some valuable nuggets, sister. Okay.
Thank you.
Valuable
I know. I
nugget.
saw that early.
Okay.
I know.
Oh,
Yeah, she has
yeah.
adorable little
So,
ones.
right. That poetess over there. I am so
Mm-hmm.
proud of her.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. She's amazing.
Walking into her
She's amazing.
greatness. You
Mm-hmm.
know, she can't be telling me
Yes.
she an introvert no more. I don't believe her. I don't believe her.
I
You
know. I
understand?
told her somebody that was so shy. I'm like, shy. She's like a quiet lion. Like,
Right?
don't step on her tail. Like,
Yes.
she's feisty. She's
Yeah.
all things great and beautiful. I'm just like, Alyssa. She's like, mm-hmm. I'm like, so yeah, I'm proud of her. She's a gem.
I love it. Yes. So we out.
We out. And I thank
Tell
you
Majestic I
again.
said hi also. Hi.
I
Hi,
will.
Majestic. Hi.
I will. I will tell him hello. I will.
My
And thank
favorite
you.
director actor.
Mm-hmm. All right. All righty. All right, my dear. And I thank you so much. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Love you too, mama. We out of here.
All righty.
Peace.
Peace. Love and hair grease. Bye.